less than 3
Thanks for
weeks.
tuning into this special edition of the Renshaw Report. Murray and I reporting from the city, too tough to die, New London. We're reporting for East Lyme with this show. Mark Nickerson is here. He's running for his, this would be second and a half, third
Second
term.
and a half term. How's that? It'd be my fourth and my fifth year as first selectman is what I'm running for.
So, Mark, thanks for taking the time.
Pleasure to be here. Always would be here
So
for you.
far, from my side of the street, seems like a very, very dull election. Am I missing anything, or is there anything going on?
It could be duller. There's, of course, I'm the Republican candidate. There is no Democrat candidate, and there is an independent running that hasn't really spent any time doing anything in politics or town payback, town government, any committees or anything.
By the way,
and he's a.
By the way, I want to set the record straight.
Yeah.
I did contact Mr. Furman,
Yes.
and he said that he was only going to be doing one debate, which is going to be moderated by the day,
Right.
which kind of took the wind out of my sails, because we kind of like to have a little warm up, you know.
Put it on the table.
But
here.
I wish he had agreed to come on, but the fact of the matter, he didn't want to, and we did extend the opportunity to him just to set the record straight. So I
I'm
guess
disappointed
you're
too.
stuck with
'Cause,
me.
hardly. I was hoping for a debate today to get to the issues and all that. We'll talk about what's going on in East Lyme, not just the past, but what's going to happen in the future. What my plans are for East Lyme. But election's 27 days away from today's taping, and looking forward to it.
Let's
So,
recap a little bit
Yeah.
before we get into looking ahead. What do you feel you and your team have accomplished during your tenure?
I'm glad you said team, because I do nothing alone, and that's not a knock against me.
Well, there is,
but you
Mark,
got
there
need to surround yourself.
is some talk that you're a control freak.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never heard
Yeah,
that.
I heard that,
Really?
yeah.
Nice to know. I'm listening, and I'll make sure I gut check that a little
Okay.
bit. No, I think it's just the opposite. I give credit where credit's due. We have great department heads. We have great people on our commissions and our boards who do the work, and I let them do their work. And it is a team. There's nothing that happens in my office that someone else hasn't also touched. We work with people. We don't. It's not a monarchy, you know. I have to make decisions. I have to lead, and I think I'm pretty skilled at doing that. But we have a team, so I'm glad you said team. You know, biggest accomplishments, when we talk about the independent police station, we've been talking about that for 30 years. Getting rid of the state troopers and bringing in our own police chief.
How's that working out so
We're about
far?
105 days into it. It's going excellent. We have a wonderful guy. I think you know Mike Finkelstein.
I know.
He was the mayor of Ledyard, and of course he was a cop for 23 years before that in Ledyard. He's a dynamite leader, a great supervisor, a good leader among men and women, and we're very pleased to have him. And as a result of this independence, we also have a police commission. So we have, again, citizens volunteering to be part of a team, 7 people. I am on that commission for disclosure purposes, but 7 people, some with law enforcement backgrounds, some with business backgrounds, some who just are citizens stepping up to the plate. But they are helping to mentor and control and supervise the new police department. So we have citizen involvement, not just me.
Well, what do they do, though, really?
Oh God, we had a 3.5-hour meeting last night
Really?
talking about crowd control. It's we have a lot of events in East Lyme.
Yeah.
You know, so we're talking about police presence and security. Yeah. We're talking about they are the traffic authority now. So if someone wants a stop sign put up, wants the speed limit lowered, and we went through that last night. Wants no parking signs in a certain area or 2-hour.
Can you fix any tickets, by the way?
I don't fix anything. I was the police chief, so I did run around with a badge, and the police were happy when I gave that badge back. It's not a bar trick anymore to pull out my badge. No, we don't do that. Yeah, slow down. Slow down. As you know, we live near each other. There's some people that drive really crazy, and this, you know, we're in an age where people get outside. We live in an age now where people realize the importance of fresh air and getting your body moving. You're not just sitting on a couch. So even in our area, there's people walking on sides of streets that are built for, they were built for horse and buggies, some of these side streets in East Lyme, and down the beach area too. People need to slow down, and I had a campaign, and I've had a campaign for 2 years, telling people slow down, enjoy our town, but really watch out. And
there was some speculation that the going to a full-time police force was going to be a financial burden. You said it was going to be cost negative.
Cost neutral.
How is that?
Cost neutral.
How has that worked out?
Cost neutral. It's cost neutral. It still is. Costs of policing will go up, and we were understaffed, and we still continue to be, in my opinion. We could use some more police presence out there for a town of 19,000 people, in a town as active as we are. Compare us to a Waterford with 34 cops. We have 23. Compare us to Stonington, same number of people, both towns, all three towns. They have 32 or 35 cops. Again, we have 23. So when you look at comparisons, but we're keeping the cost down, the cost to go from state trooper to chief and all the workings behind the scenes, cost neutral. And I can look you in the eye, I can look at our citizens in the eye and say it's cost neutral. Will costs go up? Yeah, we have gross wage increases, cost of living increases, payroll and such like that.
How do you support that?
Eventually, the taxes go up.
We don't want to get to taxes before we end the show.
Oh, we'll talk about it, absolutely.
And we're all concerned. You see the town of East Lyme growing, and what are you doing to help that happen, if so? I'm still waiting for Costco. You're not going to tell me another 10 years, right?
Oh, God, I don't know. Costco. Want to go down Costco Road, or you want to talk about growth?
Go ahead.
So we'll talk about growth. The first selectman doesn't control growth. And we'd all like to take a snap picture of our town, any town, doesn't have to be East Lyme, and say, stop right there. No more building. We love our town the way it is. We don't want more big buildings. We don't want another subdivision. It's perfect. But that's not the nature of humankind, all right? Subdivisions will be built upon what used to be farmland. Andy over at the Flanders Donuts told me a story before he passed, that when he opened up his Flanders Donuts, there was a stop sign there at Flanders Four Corners. And that's not too many, that was only a generation ago. And now it's 8 lanes wide and lots of people coming off the highway and all that. Evolution is going to happen, but you want to control growth through zoning and through planning and proper planning, and when a business comes in, you want to make sure it fits within the context of the type of town you want. No knock against Waterford, but they have a mentality of a big Crystal Mall, lots of big box stores, and lots of big development. That's not the town. That's not why people move to East Lyme. They like the more suburban. Tranquil neighborhoods, and yes, we have business. Yes, we're talking about one big box being Costco coming into our town. That was voted on 20 years ago. When I started zoning, that was an industrial park. It was designated to be an industrial park, and we flipped that around and said it should be retail because it's next to a highway, and it would bring in better tax dollars for us. We changed the zoning. We sat there for 20 years waiting for a developer to show up. Someone did. We're still waiting for Costco to be developed, so I'll transition to your question.
So you can't close the deal, Mark?
The Costco deal?
Yeah.
It's not mine to close. Again, it's not a monarchy. The Costco is on paper. They've signed a lease.
So what's the holdup?
State Department of Transportation and the developers are still trying to come together. That whole area needs to be redeveloped. You can't put a Costco in and do nothing else. It'll be mayhem down there.
I know, but
you'll have me on this show. You'll throw me out of the room.
It's outrageous, and this is a problem with the bureaucracy that we live in.
Yeah.
It's outrageous. You just said it yourself.
Yeah.
20 years ago, they started talking about this.
We rezoned it. Yeah.
Craziness.
Yeah.
Craziness. The system doesn't work. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Forget Costco. They're not coming.
Yeah. I hope they come. They're not off the table. They're still on the dotted line. If we can get the permits out of DOT, they're temporary permits because they still have to do Exit 74, which is a major $140 million project.
You're boring me, Lo. Let's go on to a different subject. Very important that's happening in your backyard right now, and that's the millstone issue. There is a good possibility that Millstone is going to close down.
It'll affect the entire region. It'll affect the entire state. And I hope the legislature wakes up
Bring
and
us up to
realizes how
speed
important.
with what's going on there.
As I understand it,
Yes.
Millstone needs to do a major investment in their plant in the next couple of years. They need to know that they're going to be supported by the state of Connecticut. And the only support they need is not a money handout. It's not like GE looking for a handout to stay in Connecticut or somewhere, or Sikorsky handout. All they want to do is to sell their electricity on the open market. Right now, we force them to sell it at a wholesale price, at a lower price, to a commodities broker who then sells it to the state of Connecticut.
Was that deregulation?
I don't know. I think we just don't allow them to bid directly into the market to protect solar and wind. That's why we don't allow them to. As I understand it, listen, I'm an insurance guy, okay? But as I understand it, and I've been briefed by Millstone, by Senator Formica, and my ears are wide open listening, we need Millstone to stay in Connecticut. All they're asking to do is to be able to sell their electricity to Eversource directly, bid on it. If they don't win the bid, they won't have to, Eversource doesn't have to buy it.
And what's the disadvantage of that? Do we know?
I don't know.
There's a big lobby out there somewhere going against this thing.
The lobby is saying, open up your books. They don't need to open up their books. We know that they're selling their electricity at a cheaper number than if they sold it directly into the market. Our electricity is the highest in the country, in the contiguous states. Our electricity will skyrocket if they close their plant, and all of our electricity comes from natural gas.
When will this come to a head, Mike?
The legislature has to act.
Well, then we're in more trouble than we know.
You said it.
Speaking of the legislature, and I know you're in touch with Senator Formica on a regular basis, certainly being from East Lyme. What are your thoughts on this budget debacle that's been going on in Hartford?
It's a disaster. It'll be devastating to towns like East Lyme. First of all, and that was if it happened in June. Never mind, now we're 3.5 months into a fiscal year, and now you want to finally sign a bill to maybe cut us? Right now, the governor's executive order is to cut East Lyme $8 million out of the $9 million we get for education cost sharing. For pilot money, we have 5 properties in the town of East Lyme that are state-owned, and they want to pay us $0.
Now, is that affecting you, our town, as we speak?
It could. We're not panicking. We have some anxious moments. We're not panicking, we're planning. We have not driven up the taxes. We haven't laid people off and shut departments down yet. But if this thing goes on much more than a month more, then we're going to have to do something about it. The governor...
Now, is that your call?
Yeah. Well, the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, and my call. Again, we work as a team.
Are you preparing for the worst?
We have plans. A contingency plan. Listen, $8 million is significant.
Don't look at us on Lover's Lane going up on our taxes. I'll tell you right now.
I'm telling you what. Where do you get the money? I can lay off everybody in town. I still wouldn't have the money. Where do you get $8 million? The schools would be $6 million of that to $5.5 million of that. If you go 2/3, 1/3.
Speaking of the schools,
how do you do that?
The governor wants towns and cities to pick up 1/3 of the cost of the teachers' pensions. That would have a devastating effect for everyone as well.
There's 2 problems with that. First of all, he gives you a number, but he just says a third, or 25%, or 10%, whatever the number is. But they do fuzzy math up in Hartford. They assume they're going to get a 10% return on their money and all that when they're getting a 3% return. So actually the numbers are much higher than they're given in the towns. First of all. Second of all is the old camel's nose under the tent. It's 10% this year, will be 20% next year, which would be 50% a year. And that balloon payment coming up, in was it 10 years or 6 years, $6 billion is owed into that fund. We'd be responsible for 50% of that. Where town's going to get the money? Your property, the average property tax payer in East Lyme might be paying $9,000, and I'm using round numbers, $9,000, but it's close to that. It would double. It would double.
So you do recognize that we can't sustain.
We can't sustain this
any longer.
Everyone's going to hurt. Everyone's going to feel this pain. Property taxes will go up when the state starts cutting back our funding.
And
No
Malloy
question
said
about it.
Malloy said in the election, no taxes, no new taxes.
Yeah.
You
And see
remember
where
that?
this is going.
No, how's the campaign going? What are your constituents? How are you? How do you campaign?
How am I campaigning? I've campaigned for 2 years. I've shown up to work 60 hours a week and put my heart and soul in it. We stay positive. We encourage. We promote and good working habits and good things from our teams, from our department heads. I'm walking the boardwalk. People are giving me thumbs up and attaboys. We have great events in town. Our business community is thriving. Walk downtown. There's people walking on the sidewalk all over the town.
Downtown Niantic
It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable, really.
People with their dogs, people with their kids, people bringing guests in. You know, your cousin. My family used to visit from out of town. We take them over to Mystic. You know, out of towners, you take them. People come downtown Niantic now. They walk the boardwalk. They go into the shops. They have a little restaurant outside, a little lunch. It's a beautiful place. It's a great thing.
So the town recently purchased that gas station across from the Morton House, and I was a little. I was a little shaky on that decision, Mark. It didn't sound good to me, but I didn't realize how big that property is. But what are you going to do with it?
It's going to be a park. So as you're driving down Pennsylvania Avenue, there's going to be green space, some trees and some benches, and blue water. And we're one of the only main streets in America that can say you got to.
What are you going to do about the chain link fence?
We're going to change that out.
To what?
Black. Believe it or not, the cheapest fence that you can get is black vinyl chain link, right? Like we have over the boardwalk. You see right through it. It actually blends through. So from Dairy Queen or you get down to CVS, you'd look down, you wouldn't even see the fence. And it will be all cleaned up.
And is it going to be a green there or something?
There's going to be some green. There's going to be kind of a platform, a 3-foot high platform. There'll be a semicircle. They'll have some benches around it, and you'll be able to sit up there. And because you're 3 feet higher, you look over the train tracks and right into the water. A citizen group is putting this together, made up of Rotary and Lions and the Public Trust and the Parks and Rec. We have people come together to come up with a plan on what it will look like, and they'll fundraise. We'll have some town money and some donated money to build this. And we are right now in the kind of the end of testing the ground there because it's a brownfield. We got a brownfield grant to clean up the property. It was a gas station. It was a train station. There's some stuff in the ground. We're pulling that stuff up. We'll cap it off and we'll have grass.
When will that be completed?
I'm hoping and I'm pushing for Memorial Day next year.
Really?
Yeah. It's not going to take much to build it once we're done with the cleanup. We're just waiting for good weather. We'll put it together.
What's our financial? What's your prediction as to major investments that the town of East Lyme is going to have to make during your next 2 years of office? You have a school building program going on.
We have the school building,
which is shaky.
We have a commitment from the state. When the state approves a school building, a refurbishment, they are committed to that money. It's already bond money that's already gone through. It's only going to be about $5 million.
You trust that?
Yes, I do.
Really?
Yeah, they have to.
Who do you do business with at the state?
I don't. Well, Department of Transportation, DEEP, but as far as the schools go, that's the school board.
I look at making a deal with the state as making a deal with the devil. Matter of fact, I had to go to the devil before I went to the state. Why am I so skeptical?
You should be. I just don't like to vocalize it. It's very difficult dealing with the state, dealing with Amtrak. I'm trying to get that chain link fence fixed all the way down the track. That's a problem. I mean, because those train tracks go through our town, and anywhere there's a fence, it's rusted, they're bent over. In front of Dad's, the fence is coming over so much that it's a safety hazard. Bicyclists have to go out into the middle of the road just to get past that. We're trying to work with Amtrak, but that's difficult. Going back to the state, it's difficult. Listen, they are laying people off. The problem is no one's answering the phones up there now. The problem is you got a guy doing 2 jobs. So now the inefficiencies are kicking in. I know a friend that was up at DMV, I think he went to Saybrook, and he was there for 6 hours returning his plates.
DMV should have been privatized years ago.
And they
All
will.
that's going on now, Mark, is political blackmail. It's out of the Democratic playbook.
That's
Because
right.
that's what they do. They hurt the people that need it most.
Right.
Take away the services that people need the most.
It's one of the only state services other than them plowing our highways, and God bless them for that, and fixing our roads, which takes forever. If you look at what they do on 95. But it's DMV is the one service we use from the state that everyone in the state needs.
Ridiculous.
And yeah.
So let's get back to expenses.
Yeah,
You're ducking me on that.
No, I'm not. I love you. No, major investments. Listen, if your budget at home gets tight, you don't go out and start buying new cars and putting a new roof on. You patch the roof. And I think with the state of Connecticut where it is right now, listen, we're going to start losing state aid. It might not be this budget. It might not be, but the next 5 or 10 years is going to be tough. I don't know if we can do major investments. We have a need for a new police station. I have a plan that I'm not ready to unveil yet, but it won't cost the $15 million that a couple administrations ago was asking the townspeople to pay for. It might cost us a couple million, and I can get the police in a better building, a new facility that would go for 30 years for a couple $1 million. I'm working on that. It might be the only investment I ask anybody to consider for the next 2 years. Right now, the roof is leaking. Let's go patch it. We can't go replace it. State of Connecticut is going to be cutting towns like East Lyme, and maybe they should. Listen, we're all going to have to feel it a little bit, but so we can't go out there and just start spending money. We have to pull it back in. We got to be able to afford to live. And I hear there's folks like yourself that are near retirement, that are trying to live on what they've built for their whole careers, their whole lives. Young families who are just trying to survive on 2 incomes.
And you have many of those.
We have both. We have the seniors and we have the young families who are coming in for the good schools. But God, they can't save $10 for college. Everything they take goes out the door. We got to be mindful of that. I'm always mindful of that. It's important.
How about this? Get back to the schools, because that's going to be a major
thing.
Investment.
Yeah.
That's going to be bonded money.
It's bonded money. It's already approved by the taxpayers. We went out and got that approved. Of course, it started at $105 million a couple of years ago before I got into office. We realized we can't afford that. Again, the roof wasn't leaking back then, but we knew it was coming. So we went it down to a $35 million plan. 5 will be coming from the state. So now you're talking about a $30 million bond. Hopefully we can save some money.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
Only $5 million is coming from the state?
Yes.
I thought it was 80% reimbursement.
No. In our town, it would be.
Mary Jane, we better go another 10 to 15 minutes, because once he starts talking, I don't have a chance.
Okay,
Is that
we're
all right,
going
Mary
long.
Jane?
It won't fit into the slot that we wanted to fit this into.
No, it will. It will.
All right, good.
Marie, you when you decide, just say, okay, thanks for
Okay, I'm trying to slow him down, but it's hard.
I was speaking fast because you have so many questions. So, no, our reimbursement in a town like ours, it might be 80% in New London. In our town, now that's when you build a new school, you get like a 20 or 30% payback from this.
See, it all sounds good. This reimbursement stuff all sounds good
We all pay for it.
until we find out sooner or later we're paying for it.
It's our
one,
money.
one way or the other.
It's our money. Listen, I have a critic in town that goes, all this grant money you're getting. Yeah, it is grant money, and it is taxpayer grant money. But if I don't go after it, some other town's going to get it. I think the state of Connecticut should shut off all grants. I think the federal government should cut down at least half of them because it's our tax money. But if it's out there, by gosh, I'm going to have our town go for it. We're going to get our fair share.
Who writes our grants?
It really department heads.
Is that a job in itself or a career in itself?
Not in our town. A lot of towns do have grant writers,
Yeah.
and they can pay for themselves. We've just never been able to step over. We're a small town, so how many grants can we get that would pay for someone who's making $50,000 a year, $20,000 in benefits? You're gonna get a lot of grant money to pay for that. So we've never stepped off of that. And we do a great job getting grants in our town. Our police do their own grants. Board of Ed does their own grants, and they get a lot of them. And our engineers downstairs, our water and sewer department, they get grants. And Dick Morris, our fire marshal, gets a ton of grants.
Really?
Yeah, for emergency management and nuclear safety because we're a nuclear town.
Water is a very, very important asset for for every town,
They say.
city.
Yeah.
What is our situation these days with drinking water?
It's great. It's never been better. Thanks to Senator Formica, we put that connection into Lake Economic, which is the New London water system. We give them water in the winter. We take it back in the summer. We've had no mandatory water conservation statements that we've had to make over the last couple of years. We needed that water to be able to build a Costco, to build those apartments behind where on the highway.
Apartments want to expand now, huh?
They want to put, well, they've already been approved, and they were a long time ago, for another 120 units. But they were supposed to build the Costco or the bridge connection to the Costco first. They're asking for a pass on that. That's up to the zoning commission. I think they should build Costco first, frankly.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Listen, they're the #1 taxpayers in town, and I am in charge of economic development and taxes in town. So do I want more tax money? And frankly, great apartment complex, attracting really great people, young engineers at EB, young families, not a lot of school kids because it's apartments, and they're pricey. They're executive apartments.
I never thought anybody would go up there.
I know. And as soon as they built them, they were 90%
amazing.
occupied. I know. But you know what? Our kids are moving. The younger generation is more transient. They know they're going to bounce from job to job. Okay? And they can't come up with 20% down payments for houses and to qualify like you and I could do 30, 40, 50 years ago. That doesn't happen anymore. So apartment living is considered, that's where they go. You know, they're not moving right to their first house as a 25-year-old.
Tell us about any other major expenses that are looking us in the eyeball.
It's the cost of running a town that you're always going to have to invest in a fire truck every once in a while, a new roof, an HVAC system. But we do everything we can to be efficient and to really look into anything we buy first. Do we need it? Can we do without it? Can we buy a second-hand one? We run a very efficient town. When you look at our mill rate, it falls very, very low on the list as far as area towns. I mean, I won't even compare us to the cities. The poor cities are suffering with high mill rates, and it's a different ballgame. It's apples and oranges. But when you compare us to the Stoningtons, even Waterford, we're very competitive. Our mill rate's very competitive next to Waterford's. And they have all that industry, and they have the nuclear power plant.
Tell us a little bit about the other people running for office this year.
I have a great team.
This dull election.
This dull election, we amassed a team that has never been better on the Republican side. We vetted them, we interviewed them, we had more people than we had positions for. I thank everybody who stepped up and inquired. We have a great Board of Finance group coming in. I won't name them all because nobody. Yeah, the Nickerson team is a team I'm very, very proud of, comfortable with, and these are people really on both sides because it's not really political. At the end of the day, we run our town, a town that we all love. Our team is fantastic, though. These are volunteers who are going to step up and give their time, talent, energy, and service to the community. God bless them.
So the criticism that's out there is that you spend too much money.
I don't. We're an efficient town. I can't combat that criticism. People are going to have that argument. I'd rather not spend money. If anything, I'm very frugal. Town departments are cutting back. What goes up are the state mandated things like binding arbitration. So our employment's gone up. Our health insurance has skyrocketed. Since I've been in office with 1510, it's probably gone up 30, 35%. I can't do anything about that. Health insurance is outrageous. If you own a business, if you're paying for your own health insurance, you know that. It's out of control. So we're having employees pay more into it, but we're stuck with some binding contracts as well. We have 3 union contracts we'll be beginning to negotiate starting in January. 3 out of the 4 town unions are coming up on renewals.
Who negotiates the contract
I
on
do.
behalf of the town?
We have a great town attorney,
Who's that?
labor attorney, Nick Grello. Has his own firm. They do business in Hartford and in Providence. He's fantastic. What a talent. You should meet him someday. I'll introduce you. This is what he does He represents towns and cities in labor contracts. This is his whole practice. This is what God put him on earth to do. And it's my responsibility to sit in on those and negotiate those. We have to be fair. We're all on a team. We're all a family. And I think the pendulum has swung as far as labor contracts in the state. We want to be aggressive, but we also want to be fair. These are people who live in our town and have families in our town too. So fairness is what we go for.
That's
You got to remember that.
That's a good philosophy.
Yeah.
Hasn't been fair to the taxpayer for the last 50 years, though.
I think you're absolutely right. I think the way the binding arbitration and the way state contracts have gone, what the state negotiates trickles down to the towns. When the state gives a 3.5%, I'm kind of stuck with that 3.5% when I negotiate a town contract. It's just the way it is. Now the state's at 0, so we're going to see where those union contracts come out.
Is this campaign any different than the other campaigns you've been?
I've been I've been campaigning for 18 years in this town.
Yeah.
I've been serving. This is different in that there's no Democrat challenger.
What did you do to the Democrats to scare them off?
I think we've worked together very well. It's not a kumbaya thing. Listen, there are two political parties, but I think things are going pretty good right now, and it's tough to get negative on East Lyme. It's real tough to be negative in East Lyme.
So in
I know you try.
East Lyme, the political system works, is what you're telling me?
Yeah, you know why? Because it's not political. At the end of the day, on November 7th, we vote. On November 8th, we're all going to shake hands. We're going to go to the table, and we're going to listen to whoever's presenting, and we're going to make decisions on what's best for the taxpayers and the citizens of East Lyme, not our political parties. It's always worked that way. That's why it's a little different in East Lyme.
What's going on at the meetings, the town meetings? Has there been any action?
Not a lot of controversy. There's appropriations for doing certain things and all that. Not a lot. Again, we're not trying to spend money. I froze the capital expenditures because of the budgets right now. So all departments are doing what they need to get by, but we're not expending anything. We're not starting any new program. Since we've started no new programming in the town. And it's a tough way to run a business because you're always trying to be progressive and set up for the next generation, but you can't under these economic times. Too difficult.
So you being in the insurance business.
I am.
And our insurance rates don't go down either.
No, they don't. Sometimes they do.
What's happening for the average person insurance-wise?
The accident frequency and the severity are skyrocketing around the country.
Going up.
Way up.
You know why? Because they're texting. Too many cars on the road. And 95 being inadequate in our area. So you have cars coming onto the highway, cars swerving, two highways that split at 395 and 95. Inadequate roads and lots of distracted driving. It's exactly what it is. I'll tell you, in places like Colorado, where marijuana was legalized, severity and frequency almost didn't double, but they went way, way up. So impaired driving too, so where you can't catch them drinking and you can't really do a field sobriety test with marijuana, we're seeing skyrocketing frequency there as well. It's alarming to the insurance companies. How about this thing with the concrete being defective? Have you followed that at all?
I have followed it. We have a couple of cases in our town.
We do.
So I show up to meetings, and there's only a couple that I know have been identified that have come through my office. It's again devastating. I use that word a little too much. I'm not a chicken little, sky isn't falling, but for these people with a foundation that's crumbling from underneath them, with a big mortgage, with their life savings built into the equity of their home, and they can't sell their home now that the thing's falling apart. We got to do something for them. It needs to probably go to a federal bailout on that one. It's too big for the state of Connecticut.
What's the status of
I don't know the answer.
the prison? Is anybody in a prison anymore?
Oh yeah. It's only a women's prison now, so they shut down. Took the males out and moved them over to the male side. It's the only women's prison in Connecticut, so therefore it is kind of protected in that it is set up and designed and programming and for the women. Yeah, it's still an important part of the prison system in Connecticut.
We're getting close to the end of this thing. Is there anything else you wanted to mention that I didn't?
Did you go to the band shell this summer?
No.
So we have free music. And our wonderful McCooks, we have music and theater.
Cooks would have
It's beautiful.
Unbelievable.
So you'd sit there and listen to a band for free that's brought in through either sponsors or our Parks and Rec department. Stars above you, the moon coming up over the rise. You turn around, there's an American flag proudly flying. It's a wonderful thing. This was our first year. What a great thing. And everywhere I go, people are talking about that. And it's going to get better and better.
Is Crescent Beach a public beach?
No. It's part of the Association of Crescent Beach Homeowners. It's maintained by Crescent Beach. They pay their own lifeguards. They pay for cleanup. And people who live in Crescent Beach can use it.
I can't tell you how beautiful that boardwalk ended up being after a disastrous start.
Yeah, what a tough start.
That is a gorgeous, gorgeous walk.
We're very proud of it. It took a while to get it rebuilt. It took extra time to do it because they got in there and there's some extra things they had to do. But we did it on budget, and it's beautiful. We didn't cut corners this time. It's and God, everyone talks about it. People, when I go to these COG meetings, the Council of Government meetings, all the other CEOs are talking about coming. Hey, I was down in Niantic this weekend walking your boardwalk. What a nice thing. And while you mentioned Crescent Beach, while that's private, you can walk the water line because water lines are always public in the state of Connecticut. And then there's the Crescent Beach Bluff, which is kind of like a mini cliff walk. In Newport, they have the cliff walk. There's a Crescent Beach Bluff that goes over to the Niantic Yacht Club. So you can walk from the yacht club all the way to the train station on the Waterford line. It's like a 5-mile walk. It's awesome.
We're so lucky to live where we live.
Yeah, we are.
In between all these towns.
Yeah, we are.
It's beautiful.
We are.
Mark, I want to wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Always my pleasure to see you.
And we'll see you Election Day. And I hope you enjoyed this special edition with First Selectman Mark Nickerson.